everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is not about gameplay, it is about the meta. It's going to be about the 5 cards that you're going to need in Ludus to be successful. Now, whether those are in the same exact deck or if they're sprinkled in, it doesn't matter. These cards are here for a specific reason. As I'm climbing the ladder, I am seeing over and over and over again these same 5 cards in any iteration, including my own decks. So I hope this video is very helpful for you. And with all that said, let's get into it. All right, guys. First card that I have chosen to put on the meta list is Muera. Now, before I go into the description of Muera and the reason why she's on this list, I must tell you now, this list is not in order. The list that I'm giving you now is solely the 5 cards that are seen everywhere, which makes them the meta. Now, there are people who are going to disagree with this. There, especially one in particular, I'm assuming it's going to be Muera. Everyone has their own opinion. Everyone has their own play style. It does not change the fact that everywhere I turn on the ladder, I am running into these 5 cards. Does not matter. There's other cards that I see quite frequently, but not nearly as much as these 5 cards. And it's not because of the faction buff of the week. It's not because of any of that. These have been seen everywhere for the last 2-3 months, roughly. Something along those lines. You won't see any of the brand new cards in here because they are still kind of trickling their way into the meta. As the time of this recording, Firestarter and Jelly Knight are the main 2 out of the new 4 that dropped that are seeing a lot of active play. Fencer is seeing play in Grand Tournament from what I've noticed, but he's still not very good. Imp is being sprinkled in, but not seen as frequently, but I do see him rising in ranks sooner rather than later. So with that disclosure said, let's get back to Muera. Muera is a member of the Legion of Darkness faction. Her health is 1.9 million at level 11. Her damage is 133,000. Her attack speed is 1.5 seconds, and her attack range is the entire board. Her ability summons a 360,000 HP crit till the end of the round. Every 10 seconds, it summons 3 skeletons for 10 seconds. Each skeleton has 470,000 HP and deals 78,000 damage. Her skeleton warrior has a 235,000 HP shield. Her skeleton archer has 40% to attack speed, and her skeleton mage attacks deal damage in a small area. Muera can turn the tide of battle very, very quickly. In the beginning stages of the match, not the rounds, the matches, if you can get her to tier 3, her skeleton has a very strong chance of surviving. More often than not, I do win with just a skeleton in the beginning stages of the game or the match. I can't boast. I can't promote this any harder than what I have done previously. Muera just wins games. When she can get to super merge and the game is in your favor or not in your favor, it doesn't matter. When she gets to super merge, if placed correctly, she will flood the board. There is no doubt in my mind that she is top tier. There is no doubt in my mind she wins games. Her only weakness that I have seen so far is Griffin and Draco. Sometimes it's Duckwing, but even though her attack range says the entire board, she does move forward. She does get a little bit closer. I think there's a problem going on with Muera, to be honest with you. But the attack range being the entire board could just strictly mean that the skeletons go everywhere. So, you never really know. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Muera sits up there because of the fact she floods the board, and she pairs nicely with dang near every single card in the game. And by pairing with that, I mean adding bodies. You can add bodies, you're adding pressure. So, yeah. That's the end of Muera. Let's move on to the next one. Alrighty, everyone. Next one on our list is Draco. At level 10, his health is 1.6 million, his damage is 79,000, and his attack speed is 2 seconds. His attack range is the entire board, and his movement speed is high. I honestly have never really seen Draco move outside of his combat boost. He stays in one particular spot but there is a combat boost that allows for him to fly to another area, lighting the ground on fire as he does so, because he's in melee range of somebody. So that's very, very helpful. It's been known to be helpful to other people. I have yet to make it work for me, and I'm kind of ashamed of that. But moving on, his ability, he deals 117,000 damage to enemies in a large area and sets it on fire for 5 seconds, dealing 117,000 damage, I almost misread that, damage per second to enemies in the area. He targets 3 enemies at once. So basically what it means by he targets 3 enemies at once, he has a 3-round burst that will do fireball, fireball, fireball. Now, if there is only one card that he is attacking, it'll do fireball, fireball, fireball right to that target. He is very, very handy. He does take out people quite frequently. He is one of the counters to Muera, strictly because of mainly the targets 3 enemies at once, but also because he sets the whole area on fire. That'll take out the crit, that takes out the skeletons, and it drops Muera's health quite a bit. So basically, for long-range attackers, Draco sits up high on the meta list because of the damage he can do, because of the combat boost maneuverability, and ultimately because of his power. His other combat boost does allow for his attacks to set the area on fire, dealing 50% I believe the epic is 50% increased damage, and that is extremely helpful for people who like to use Lava Girl. If you like to use Lava Girl, she was nerfed in the last update. However, Draco and Lava Girl is still a very good combo. It still pays out very, very well. Draco can pair with multiple people and make the game sway in your favor. You will see this quite a bit because of the fact Draco can take out Jelly Knight slimes, slime oozes from the rare, Muera, and Mummy Warrior. Basically, all 4 cards that give tokens, Draco can take out, so you'll see him quite a bit as you go up the ladder. His main counter is Griffin or Makeup. Basically any card that can go to the back line. So Nightmare as well is another big problem for him. Monkey King can be a problem, and Vamp can be a problem. The mainly 5 cards that can that can take him out. Just keep that in mind. Okay, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, so I'm going to end this portion of this, and we'll move on to the next meta card. And now we have moved on to Duckwing. Oh, Duckwing, how I both love and despise you. My Duckwing sits at level 10, so that means his health is 1.5 million. He is a part of the Mad Science faction. His damage is 23,894. His attack speed is 1.1 second, and his attack range is the entire board. His movement speed is high. Again, similar to Draco, he does not move, but he does have a combat boost that lets him move out of the way and potentially drop bombs closer to the other people. Yet another combat boost that I have tried and have not successfully liked, where others have tried it and has worked for them. His ability hits 10 enemies with rockets, each dealing 106,000 damage, then drops a bomb dealing 131,000 area damage. Upon death, Duckwing explodes, dealing 47,000 damage to nearby enemies. So, Duckwing does not seem that powerful. His attack damage is low. His ability, it hits 10 enemies and drops a bomb, which is super nice, does a substantial amount of damage, but his upon death explosion is not as strong as what I feel it needs to be, but it's a good half mark, so it is balanced. The reason why Duckwing is a part of the meta and may very well fall off the meta sooner rather than later is because of a combat boost he gets. I mentioned before he has one where he moves out of the way. His second one is a stun. Uncommon is 1 second, rare is 2 seconds, and epic is 3-second stun. I cannot stress how overpowered that combat boost is. The 1 second stun, manageable. The 2 second stun, it's a headache, but it is manageable and it is able to be beaten. The 3 second stun is vastly overpowered, and it is too much. It is way too much. So I've had multiple games in the last 2 days where I have dominated my opponent, getting them down to 1 health left when I have 5 or 4 left. And they get that 3-second stun, and everything on my field does not move. It's ridiculous. The stun itself is so overpowered, it's just crazy. But you'll see moving through the ladder, a lot of the AI and a lot of the players themselves like to pair Duckwing and Draco together, doing large amounts of AoE damage between the ground being lit on fire and the bombs. Those are the two main ones that pair together in each meta deck that I have seen thus far. If you include the stun with that and the area lighting on fire, basically all that's happening is he's dropping the bombs, stunning everything, Draco's lighting them on fire, and they're just sitting there stunned, burning alive. It's a very powerful combo, and it's a very fun combo to pull off. It just gets annoying more often than not with the stun. So if you have Duckwing, it doesn't matter if it's level 7, level 8. If you want to stun on that one just because you want to be, as I like to call it, the asshole move, go with Duckwing, get that stun. Your chances of winning go up a lot with Duckwing on your team, especially with that 3-second stun. And I am going to keep repeating myself with it because it annoys me so much. So before I go and do that, I'm going to close this one out. And we're going to move on to the last two of the meta that are the most powerful out of them. And two cards I see getting nerfed, but after Duckwing. So moving on to those. All right. For most people who play Ludus, this is not a surprise to you. The first overpowered card in the game that is seen in 95% of the decks I play against is Griffin. He is a member of the Alliance of Light faction. His health at level 11 is 2.3 million, and his damage is 141,000. His attack speed is 1.5 seconds. His attack range is melee, and his movement speed is high. If you can see from the ability, I can't stress how overpowered Griffin is. His ability is he leaps at an enemy and deals several blows over 3 seconds, dealing 2.3 million damage and stunning the target. Nearby enemies get shocked, lowering their outgoing damage by 60% for 3 seconds. The Griffin gains immunity to control effects for the duration. For the duration means 3 seconds. So for 3 seconds, he can't be targeted by Evil Eye. He can't be stunned by Treant or Duckwing stun. He can't get put to sleep by Snoozemander for 3 seconds. Basically Griffin goes into kill mode. And what kill mode is whatever he is going to target will die. Now, don't get me wrong. Griffin is squishy. He can be taken out. He can be taken out very, very quickly if you can place your cards correctly. Firestarter is one of the main ones that I have seen and used to counter Griffin, solely for the purpose of melting him before he can go off. However, Griffin, to my knowledge, and I could be mistaken here, but Griffin is the only card in the game with an ability that is over 1 million damage. At 2.3 million damage, Griffin can drop damn near every single card in the game. He is used primarily to take out Duckwings and Dracos and Muertas and anything on the back line that is causing issues. If you are smart enough with your board, I had to figure out the words there. If you're smart enough with your board, you can take the opponent's Griffin and put it somewhere else away from your big group of people. What I like to do generally, if I'm caught in that moment, is I like to put something on the back, or a fodder card on the 4th row in the corner away from everything else. Because of the fact that he shocks nearby enemies when he does that, by grouping people together, one, you are guaranteeing Griffin will die. That one's kind of a given, because as he jumps in, he's jumping into a crowd of people. He's taking out his target, but he's getting taken out by everything else. But to avoid the shock, you want to be at least a square away from whatever he is jumping to, and that will ultimately help take him out. However, Griffin, I have watched, I have used, and I have been taken advantage of by him just running roughshod. I have watched him jump from card to card to card to card to card because of his combat boosts. The combat boosts there's 2 of them. The first one is he can restore his health. I believe the epic is 30%, the rare is 20%, and the uncommon is 10% of his health. He restores that upon each enemy kill. So it's based off of his HP, not theirs. So basically, if he goes and jumps to a super merge in the back, he kills them off, he's gaining some of his health back. But then he'll take out a T3, a T2, or a T1 that's in that same area, drop those very, very quickly with one swipe of his paw, and kill them, restoring his health more. Then he'll jump to another super merge, kill that, jump to another one, kill that. I've watched him win games as him being the only super merge. It's ridiculous and it's overpowered. So just so everyone is fully aware, there is discussion that I have seen periodically through the Ludus Discord and my own clan's Discord that eventually Griffin will be nerfed. I'm hoping that his outgoing damage for his basic attack isn't touched. His health isn't touched. I'm just hoping it's the ability. If that ability gets cut in half, it'll make, it needs to be cut in half. Ultimately, an ability doing full health of almost every card needs to go away. But if it's halved, it will make him viable, it'll make him balanced, but it'll also make him manageable, which is what I'm hoping for. So, with all that said, let's move on to the last card and the main card in the game that ultimately I believe wins games on her own. All right, everyone, we have landed on our last card of the meta, and the one that sits with Griffin on the throne as the two main cards you see everywhere, and that is Kitsune. She is a member of the Guardians of Nature faction. Her health is 2.2 million. Her damage is 81,000, and her attack speed is 1 second. Her attack range is melee, so she's going to be right up front and center. Her ability is the reason why she is broken. She surrounds herself with a large energy draining field for 4 seconds. The field deals 106,000 damage per second to enemies inside it. Silences their energy regeneration, drains 200 energy per second, and shocks all targets, reducing outgoing damage by 40% and slowing them down. The only real way to stop Kitsune at all is 1, if she is poorly positioned by the opponent. 2, she has her energy drained by your Kitsune before she can go off. Or 3, I shouldn't say or 3, 3, she gets pushed out of the way, gets stunned or something to make sure her ability doesn't go off. Or 4, you just erase her completely because they put her too far back and your team went and focused her down immediately. Only way I know how to beat her. With her health being 2.2 million, it takes a few cards attacking all at once onto her for her to go down. If her ability goes off, needless to say, if her ability goes off, your front line's melted. There's just no doubt about that. Treant can survive it, but he doesn't have the attack damage nor the ability damage to take her out on his own. He needs backup. So if your front line consists of Treant, Griffin, and Kitsune, Treant, Griffin, and Kitsune, all 3 get caught up in the Kitsune tornado that is her energy draining field. Most likely, the Griffin is going to be down to a quarter of a health, the Kitsune to half health, and Treant to half health. If the opponent has positioned correctly and has damage coming at those same 3 cards, those 3 cards are gone. And that opponent's Kitsune just walks right through everything. It's ridiculous. I have won so many games because of Kitsune and Griffin alone. This deck, or these 5 cards that I've put in this video, make what I like to call the tankless build. Kitsune and Griffin go up front first and give Muera, let me point this out. I gotta word this correctly. Kitsune and Griffin are up on the front row. Griffin will jump to the back line. Kitsune will hit her ability. That gives enough time for Muera to drop out her crypts, Draco and Duckwing to both blow up and burn the entire field. The only real way that I have lost with this deck, because I play this quite frequently, is poor placement, or I just don't get the cards I need because I'm getting a forced loss. That's really all it comes down to. I wish I could say that there is counters. There is counters. You just have to be really, really good at figuring out where those counters need to land. You need to outplay your opponent when it comes to those counters. Bastion does well with his taunt. Mako does really well with his stun if it can go off before Kitsune gets her ability off. And when I say before, I mean he has harpooned, brought them in, and the shark is coming up as the ability triggers. If he only harpoons and her ability triggers, the shark does not go off. I have seen this happen more often than not, that she will stop that. So she also will stop Griffin jumping at the same exact time. I have actually witnessed this. Last night, I watched this. Griffin went to jump. The energy field hit. He dropped and immediately started hitting the Kitsune. He didn't go after my backline. So basically, Kitsune shuts everything down. Whether it's a glitch in the game or whether it is meant to be that way, it's happening. So if there is a nerf to Kitsune at all, the nerf is most likely going to be that the energy draining field does not stop abilities that have already been activated, which it currently does. It's most likely going to be 100 energy drain per second instead of 200. And the shock is probably going to be 20% instead of 40%. That's what I think. Her energy draining field could potentially go to 3 seconds, maintain the 200 and do the shock at 20%, and basically not prevent abilities for her to be balanced. So this is the end of my list. A lot of people are not going to agree with this list. A lot of people have their own different playstyles and stuff like that. But given how many people I have told to use this deck for and everything else when I'm asked for deck builds and stuff like that, I immediately say this, and then I get told that, you know, it worked. They're winning, they're climbing the ladder and stuff like that. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This tier list will change. The meta cards will change. But I have a strong feeling that it's only going to be Muera, Duckwing, and Draco that really ultimately get replaced later on. I think Griffin and Kitsune are at the peak of their power right now, but will continue to be staples in the game for quite a long time. So if you have Griffin, Kitsune, Duckwing, Draco, or Muera, and you have kind of just been overlooking them, I think it's time for you to reinvestigate them so you can climb the ladder a little bit higher. So there are more cards that make up really good decks, and I will be making a video on those very soon. But for right now, I really wanted to point out the meta cards because there is an update coming eventually. Probably within the next, I'm hoping within this month of July, I'm hoping there's an update that fixes some of these things. But if there isn't one and this continues, then at least you know that these are the meta cards. These are what you have to prepare yourself against or use. So briefly, before I end this video, I want to point out the counters one more time. Muera is countered by Draco and Duckwing. If you place her too far forward, a Kitsune will counter her and take her out quickly. She's also, or I said Draco, Duckwing, and Griffin. Those are the three main counters for Muera. Another good counter for her is Evil Eye with a combat boost that gives fear to scatter her around. Lich does very well with damage, but you have to be prepared with him. You have to have a solid front line with that. And I want to say that Tech Golem would be a good tank against Muera. Draco and Duckwing are primarily countered by Griffin and Mako, or themselves. Draco, Duckwing counters Draco, Duckwing. Draco's ability will actually take out a Duckwing. Duckwing will take out a Draco, stuff like that. The counter for Griffin. This one is stuns. Stuns a Kitsune. Treant stun will take him out, or will take him. Kitsune doing her ability will take him because he is very, very squishy. These aren't... How can I put this? These cards all can be countered and all can be taken out. Combined, though, they all cause chaos. That's the beautiful thing about Ludus. Every card can be countered. There's some that are super weak, there are some that are super strong, but everything can be countered. Kitsune is countered by Gunslinger pushing back, Rocker pushing back, Mako stun, any stun, Kitsune itself, and just being primarily focused down. So it all bases itself on placements. I just want to give hope, really, ultimately, at the end of this video. A lot of people, including myself, when I see a meta list like this, it ultimately makes me think these are all gods. And they're not. They all can be taken out. They're just very, very fast, very, very strong, but they can be taken out. So if you're new to the game, if you're in the game now, but you don't have Kitsune or Griffin or any of the cards on this list, just know you can counter them. You can win. It's just a little bit more of an uphill struggle than if you had them in general. So, with all of that being said, I am going to leave you all the same way I always do. Life can be fun if you allow it to be. We'll see you in the next one.